That's interesting because I think everybody who listens to this that works for you, tomorrow they're going to call you from a beach.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, I'm just done for a week. Don't worry, Pete. I'll get it done. And then we'll have another podcast where you're like, yeah, I had to let everybody go.
Yeah. The thing we built, Sense, is the name of the survey tool, which is on our website. You can go and take a look.
Nice plug. Nice
plug.
Thank
you. I thought I'd get one. I'm really going for it. I hope you can tell.
So welcome back to the Data Strategist podcast. Today's episode is number 7. And to be honest, it's a bit of a personal one for me. We sometimes in our careers have moments in time or people that we meet that change our trajectory on what we're doing and why we're doing things. And sometimes you have important role models in your career that really drive that change in yourself as a manager, leader, whatever, or just the trajectory you're going on in a career. And today's guest, Peter Sueref, who's the co-founder and CTO of Empirisys, was that person for me. And absolute pleasure to bring him on and just talk to him about his career, what he's done, and it's fascinating. You will absolutely love it. What is he doing now with his new company, a new tech startup, and all the things they're doing through there. And we go sort of through a bit of the cultural side of building a company. We talk a little bit about what is data leadership essentially, and then we have a little bit of fun at the end talking about data ethics and AI. So thank you to Pete for coming on and give me the time that you have. Absolute blast of a podcast, and I know anybody listening will love it as well. So thank you very much. Enjoy the listen. It's awesome. All right, so welcome to the Data Strategist podcast. Today's guest is Pete, and no point me introducing you, so jump on in.
Sure, yeah, thanks, Stu. So my name is Peter Sueref. I'm the CTO of Empirisys. We're a tech startup. And I have worked with Stuart in the past, a little while ago now, and we're just recalling when we last spoke. I think it was probably pre-COVID, maybe. We worked together at Centrica for a few years. Yes.
It was definitely a while back. I try to think of when it was. It was definitely pre-COVID.
I think it was pre-COVID, actually. I think it might be 2018 or something.
Yeah, it's been a while.
The ancient past. You didn't have any of this before, did I? None of the grey. It's all coming since.
Everybody who comes on my podcast seems to have facial hair. And
I did notice that.
I'm a bit worried. I need to,
you need to up your game.
Up my facial hair game. So, obviously I know your career and your background. It'd be just great if you could just share that with us about who is Peter Sueref and what does he do?
Sure. So I graduated 20 years ago in computer science at Cardiff Uni, and I immediately got a summer job at British Gas to do some data entry related stuff. And 20 years later, I was still there doing data related stuff, not data entry, but other data related stuff. So I basically carved out a career initially as a software developer, and then I moved into sort of data architecture. And then, as you tend to do as you get a bit older, walked into sort of management roles. So I was a Scrum Master for a bit, then I was a manager of a function. I ran a data team, then quite a big data team for a little while. I became, at the end of my career in Centrica, the director of data science. So my career kind of moved from purely data and kind of comp sci background into data science. And I was there until 2020. During the COVID year, I left and I formed Empirisys. So Empirisys is the tech startup that I'm the CTO at right now. And I think that brings us more or less up to date. There's lots in the middle of all that, but
we've got to stop there, and you've got to dive into that a bit because you kind of missed out the whole start in a data science function.
Well, I did,
like agile world. You've done a lot, man. You kind of just summed that up. You summed 17 years up in about 3 minutes.
It feels
so
like
much.
Yeah, it feels like a flew past. But I'll touch on some of the interesting stuff that I did while you were there anyway, Stu, because I think some of the stuff that we did then was really interesting for a big company like Centrica to get involved in. And I think a lot of big companies still don't even know how to get involved in. But When I was running the data function, one of the other sort of side hustles that I had in my role as director of data science was getting involved in innovation generally. So I was on the innovation board for the company, and I set up, along with a bunch of other people, the Innovation Accelerator Hub. So that was the function by which we could very quickly look at products, understand whether they had legs, and then spin something out. So, building MVPs and sort of delivering very fast prototypes. And this would have been back in 2016, I think, sort of 2016 through to about 2018, 2019. And we were really successful. We launched a whole ton of stuff. In particular, we actually launched a product into the market, which is wild to think that a big company, a big energy company, thinks about software in that way. Thinks about software sort of strategically enough that they think is worth investing in it. So we launched a data company, a data startup out of the market. We took the company's first forays into blockchain. We built our own blockchain within the company. We did some very early kind of prototype EV charging, mobile EV charging, before that was huge. Before the sort of gamut of various kind of charging companies there are today. And we I think more importantly than that, we created this function within this big organization to help that big organization understand how to behave like a startup. And I'm quite proud to say that even today that function still exists. Just about, I think, it's been changed quite a bit since we were there, but there's still this concept of like an accelerator hub by which the company can really quickly test and learn. So that was great, and we did a whole ton of data science projects as well, which I could talk about. The beauty of the data science team that we had there is that although Centrica is an energy company, it has huge variety and scope amongst the kind of the within the company. So it's got sort of energy retail through British Gas. It's got upstream generation. It has kind of exploration and production, and then it had all the corporate functions. So big HR, big legal, big marketing functions. And the lovely thing about the data science team is that we spread across all those functions. So we created based on what was relatively new at the time, the Spotify model of kind of, agile tribes and so on. You probably remember this. We created that within Centrica for data science. And we tried, I think we did it quite successfully. We tried to land data scientists within each of the functions of the business so that they could start to build their own data science capability. And I think that was quite advanced in terms of his thinking back then. Back kind of 2015, 2016 was when we were really pushing hard with that. That was a little bit ahead of its time. So I'm quite proud we managed to do that. And I know today, again, 7-8 years later, I know their HR function has a dedicated data science capability that has still got a kind of direct line of sight to the HR tribe that we built whenever it was 5 or 6 years ago. And I think that's great. I think what we did is long lasting, had an impact. It's still there. It's really difficult to do that, and I think that's one of the few kind of occasions in my career I can think back and say, oh yeah, I did that. I helped to build some of those things, and it's still there, still having some kind of impact.
It's quite hard as well, because Centrica was a waterfall heavy sort of company, wasn't it? And I remember when Agile was kind of first introduced to us. And we were in Staines, and there was a presenter there, I'm not going to name who it was, that came in, and we were doing sort of a data project. I don't know whether you remember this, but he was there celebrating what Agile can do and how we're going to use Agile in this new MI transformation project. Might give you an indication of what I'm talking about. And he gave us a big speech about it. And as soon as he walked out the room, everyone turned to each other and went, I have no idea about that. We're just going to do waterfall. So it was just, we just reverted straight back. So, and that was quite early on, that was. And when we went to get from that to a Spotify model, was pretty impressive in such a large conglomerate, if you like. It's pretty crazy. Yeah.
Well, I've gone up and down with Agile over the years because, and maybe we'll talk about this a little bit later, but my career right now, I am, a business owner, a director of a business, and the CTO. I'm a data architect as well, so I get involved in projects. And my sort of take on agile is that it's super useful in its right place, but actually an awful lot of the projects that I think purport to be agile are sort of, they're waterfall in an agile trench coat. Basically, they're delivering in stages, and you kind of know what you're going to get, when you're going to get it. But there are little incremental bits that you have a bit of ability to experiment and to muck around. And I don't think that's a terrible thing. I think that's okay. But then, you can look at sort of models like SAFe, the big agile Prince 2 for agile, and you think, well, what is this? Where is this meant to be operating? What's this meant to be helping by putting this level of structure and control? And I'm not anti-structural control, but I think if you're going to do structure and control, then maybe you're sort of missing some of the points of agile, and the kind of original manifesto around understanding the principles behind it, I feel get lost sometimes. And that's not the worst thing in the world. When you're in a big organization, you need a bit of assurance, don't you? You need a bit of security. Yeah. So I'm currently in a phase where I'm still pro agile, but I'm also thinking that waterfall's definitely got its place for us. And we're a small, very quick, very nimble company. We still need to know that the numbers are going to add up at the end of the month.
Yeah, I think agile, if you took it from the agile handbook that was created, probably wouldn't work anywhere in the world apart from a couple of guys in their garage.
Yeah,
like, as long as if you take the principles of agile, so like principle, I think the first principle is, people over process. If that's kind of what you go for, that is a good start. Okay, there will be some bureaucratic things you have to do, especially if you're dealing in sort of health and safety or a regulated sector. You haven't got a choice but to follow a waterfall process or a stage gate process. But if you have a people over process as your fundamental value, it kind of works. It may not be true agile experience, but it's a value.
I think the principle, it sounds great, and it's alliterative. That's always nice, isn't it? People and process they fit together. But then when you actually implement and you think, what does this mean? Okay, well, there's a data protection process, right? So have to do that. Okay, fine. And we've got a deployment process that we have to stick to because our DevOps team insists that we do it. So, whether we can talk about DevOps is something else I'll have a moan about. But yeah, fine, there's a process there. We're going to do that. And also there's a security process. Okay, fine, we'll do the security process as well. But then we're going to get to people, right? And by the time you get to the people bit of it, then it's sort of it doesn't tend to mean as much anymore. I think it works when you're doing genuine exploration and it is the sort of two guys or two gals in a garage that are building something. I think as soon as you go into a big company or any kind of company where you need to have any level of surety or security, so in our company we've got investors cash, we have to pay salaries the end of the month, and we don't want to be sued by anybody for breaking the law or losing data or doing something irresponsible. We are going to put process ahead of lots of other things just to make sure we don't do those things. So while I agree with the principle, you shouldn't do things just because the process is there. There are, I think, it's a lot more complicated than that, and that's why I'm kind of agile. I don't know. I'm not anti-agile. I think it's a great paradigm for developing stuff.
Yeah, I think it lives in that development cycle, though. It doesn't necessarily live in your HR process. It does live in that software development 2-week window, or 3 or 4 week, whatever window it is.
Yeah,
that's where it needs to stay. You can't be an agile company as such, right? Because that doesn't, like you said, the corporation side of it won't let you, and your HR policies won't let you. You've got to be more stringent that way. But in the development cycle, how people work and how you generate new features, how you generate epics and that sort of work, that really helps team flow to deliver stuff. And I think
it does. I agree, and I think I think the kind of the ceremonies that are in place for Agile and the cadence you build up in Agile is really great. And I there's some things I really like about it, like planning poker, which is not strictly Agile, but it's used a lot in Agile. I think that's a really great way of understanding that I'm on the same page as you. We both have share a common understanding of this thing that we're trying to build. So yeah, I think there's a lot of great stuff, but I'm not as beholden to it as I was a few years ago in my career, where I kind of saw as a reaction to waterfall. And I've been around for a little while, so when I started, everything was purely waterfall. All projects were waterfall. That was the only way. And then Agile was this beautiful thing that could rescue us from the tyranny of a project plan. And now I think the tyranny of Agile has maybe taken over a little bit, and we need to think, let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. There's some good stuff there that we can take from both models and hopefully merge them together. Or anyway, I feel like we could probably talk about that all day and not even talk about data.
That's true, yeah. But it is part of the the process and the work we do, right? But how we operate is a big factor into that. And I think, when we were at Centrica, that was a really pivotal moment on how everybody works. Because if we went back and we only did waterfall, would it have been successful and would it have stayed there? Probably not.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Someone else would have come in.
I agree. But then I'd also argue that for lots of the stuff we did, it was sort of a little bit waterfall in disguise. You're given a set budget, set of deadlines, set of deliverables, and you're told, well, do Agile on your way there, but this is what the end product needs to look like, and these are your requirements up front, and this is the architectural framework it needs to fit in. So the only variability is, shall I use Scala or Java? Shall I do it this way or that way? But I'm going to end up building the same thing. Whereas I think the real value behind a lot of Agile is the experimentation about what is that we're building, and being completely happy to throw stuff away and start again. This doesn't work. We tested it. This MVP is crap. It's gone. We're going to try something else, or pivot, or just discard it and leave it. And I think that's a really difficult thing culturally to do in a big company even today.
Yeah, I think the fail fast stuff does hit home pretty quickly, though. When you can present it in a way that okay, we didn't waste 3 million on a project. We knew straight away that this was crap. So
that was the point of the accelerator hub. Really, was to de-risk the project plan. So there's a big project plan. We're going to spend 3 million building this thing. Before we do that, let's spend 20K testing something, making sure these components fit together, or that there's a market for it, or wherever it might be. And then you lose 20K. Okay, we can sort of swallow that. We're not losing 3 million on it. And I think that's where the huge benefit is. I'm very happy that Agile works like that. I think that's a good use case for it. But then once you've de-risked it, and then you say, okay, we know we want to build now, we want to go to the 3 million project, I think actually then you start to move more towards naturally a kind of waterfallish project where you're going to get phases.
More of a governed model.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes sense.
I'm glad we solved that, Stu. That's something we should publish, right?
Let's write a book. Why not? The downfall of Agile. So you went through Centrica, and you had a pretty amazing career if you think about it at Centrica. From working in Cardiff in the contact center space. Was it a contact center you were working on first of all?
I was based in the contact center, but I was always in sort of different functions. I didn't pick up the phone to a customer, which is probably a really good thing, because as you can tell,
grace,
probably would have insulted somebody or being fired quite early on for that.
A long time though, and you could look back at that, and that's a pretty awesome career just at that one company.
It was great because I had the chance to do lots of different things there, and every time I was thinking about moving, just luckily I'd find a different role within Centrica. There was progression, or it would develop me as a person, or I'd get to work with a bunch of different people in a different area. And I worked in kind of all different spaces there. which was really exciting, that you could sort of, I'm going to work with renewables now, or I'm going to work with distributed energy now, or I'm going to work in the innovations function, or I'm going to work building a big data warehouse for all of the kind of the contact centers, or so there's lots of different stuff that, if you're interested in data and interested in energy, actually, because energy is an interesting sector to be in. It offered an awful lot, and they were a very good employer. I had a lot of really good times there. It was not a straightforward decision to leave. I haven't regretted leaving. I think what I'm doing now is great, and I wouldn't go back on it. But it was a difficult thing to think about doing after being so long at the same company as well.
Yeah. So what did that feel like when you the first day you left, when you said, right, I'm going?
Oh man, it felt like I'd severed something, So because if you like remember back to the COVID year, Teams really took off, I guess, that year and the year before. But there were always kind of Teams channels with messages pinging up, and you could see sort of a hive activity all the time. It was always there. It was on your phone if you wanted it to be. So you were constantly connected. And you've Centrica, 30,000 employees. I had 50 people in my team, say a few hundred people in my wider team, few thousand people in the wider kind of like IT and change function. So there's always emails or Teams messages or Slack messages or something, and then you leave and all that goes away immediately. The chattering stops, the noise stops, and you just get silence. That felt really strange. I felt really disconnected for a while. I don't think lonely is the right word. It wasn't loneliness, but it was like, oh, I've lost something and I'm not going to get that back now. And I've been there for so long, like pretty much all of my friends I've met at some point, either directly or indirectly through my kind of relationships with people at Centrica. So it was a very, very odd, discombobulating feeling. And because it happened in COVID, you didn't really get sort of
amplified.
Yeah, it was really amplified because you're already cut off. You're already sort of socially isolated. And I don't think I ever fully processed the effect that had on my mental health. Like genuinely, I think it was such a strange, very, very quick and very weird, difficult experience. I had to go in to pick my stuff up from an office that I hadn't been to for 7 or 8 months. So when did COVID landed? March 2020. My last day at Centrica was November. Obviously, I hadn't been into their office because it had been closed for the whole year, but I had to go into the office to pick up my stuff. And I went into this empty office that, had cobwebs everywhere, basically, to pick up all my bits and leave. It was really bizarre. It felt like a film. It felt like, the beginning of 28 Days Later, we kind of go into an abandoned London. Like, what the hell's going on?
I remember I think it was the end of January, I flew back from India and they had the heat sensors tracking everybody when you come in. And at the time, I was really like, whatever, there's something wrong in China, nothing over here. There's a really surreal feeling, like landing back in Heathrow and they're all like checking your temperature.
Yeah.
So I was hearing about it in India, and then on the flight back, it's like fine. But then when you got off Heathrow, it's like everyone's wearing masks, everyone's got like these heat sensors. And that was a bit of a wild experience.
It's very strange, yeah.
I never really thought about that when you started your startup, though. I never really thought about the loneliness of it. Like
it's
my head was in the money space, like thinking, how am I going to survive? How am I going to do this sort of thing? I didn't even contemplate the loneliness element.
No, the loneliness and disconnection is kind of terrifying. And when you start a company, unless you've got a bunch of customers lined up, you don't have any work to do either, or you're sort of left to figure out, what work should I be doing? I should be spending time thinking about my marketing, my sales pipeline, my funnel, or building collateral, or making links, reaching out. But none of it is being driven by anybody except by you. Whereas when you're in a big company, I've got a huge change plan that I need to figure out how I'm going to do. and I kind of know where I need to do day to day, and there's a hive activity that will start shouting at me and buzzing louder if I don't get our work done.
Yeah.
That goes away completely when you launch a company. For the at the beginning, it's not like that now. It's 3 years later, I have more in common with Centrica now, weirdly, in my company than I do with my company 3 years ago, which is, I've never said that out loud, but that feels sort of strange.
That's
We're
a bit
now,
bizarre, isn't it?
well, we've grown enough that we are a proper company now. We have we have like legal and HR and marketing and all these functions. We might not, we might contract them out rather than employ directly, but we have them. I can call on them, and we have a bunch of customers, bunch of employees, a load of projects we need to deliver. So that is like a real company. Whereas when we started, didn't feel like a real company for quite a while. Heavy imposter syndrome, which I think you've talked about on the podcast before, haven't you?
Yeah.
I'm sure I heard. Yeah,
It's a real thing, and people never think about it. They never really talk about it, but it is a real thing. And I always thought about it from just getting a new job. The size of imposter syndrome when you're starting your own company must be pretty huge. Like even the job title, right? The job title probably felt a bit weird first, right? CTO.
Yeah, it does, and I don't tend to use it ever. And then when I say it, I'm like, oh, that's sort of strange. That feels. Do
you just say founder now? I'm the founder.
I say I work for a startup generally, which is not me being modest. It's me being feeling sort of awkward about it.
I could imagine you in a turtleneck though.
Standing on stage, style.
Steve Jobs, yeah, definitely see you doing that.
I haven't quite got. I don't think I got the ego for Steve Jobs. Or maybe you can ask some of my employees and see what they say. I'm sure they pick out some other people that I'm probably more similar to.
As a former employee, so what is Empirisys then? You got a t-shirt, living the brand. So what is it, and how did it start? What's this journey look like?
So when I was at Centrica, I had the privilege and good luck to work with a chap called Gus Cowell, who was the chief engineer and head of process safety at Centrica. And we did, and you did actually, Stu, as well, you were involved. We did some really interesting projects around building barrier models. So trying to figure out, could we build like essentially a really sophisticated dashboard that would pull a load of data together from a bunch of different sources and say, are your safety barriers in place? Is the plant safe? And it was sort of traffic light, kind of red, amber, green. It wasn't like the dashboard itself wasn't hugely complex. The work underneath it was pretty good because we had to kind of pull together those different data. But essentially, it was just a dashboard building a barrier model. And I thought that's a really nice project, but why are we building it? Why isn't there a product already that does that? That was one of the questions that sort of jumped out. And when we looked at it, we found there are products out there that do some of this stuff, but the data bit is not great. There's always a whole bunch of integration that needs to be done, and actually the output isn't that sophisticated. We've already reached the kind of level of sophistication as the actual products out there. There's no prediction, there's no sort of forecasting, there's no trend analysis. It's literally just, this is your picture. So I thought, okay, interesting. Maybe we can try and launch something. Maybe we can go to market with something in the same way that we went to market with some of our other products that we built, and never quite got the traction. We never managed to, I guess, persuade the right people or make the right case that we should do it. So I sort of left it for a while, stayed in touch with Gus, did another couple of projects together, various different things, lots of kind of text analysis, NLP, because Gus was always interested in this stuff, and he could see that there was a gap. He wanted this for his part of the function. And then again, COVID year, we both had the opportunity to leave Centrica. So there was a big round of voluntary redundancies. The organization was changing. There was less of a focus, understandably, given the kind of climate, on innovation. and more of a focus on just getting the basics right and, building the business back up from the ground up. The share price had tanked a bit. They weren't in a brilliant place, and they've really recovered well since. But at the time, I thought, well, it's kind of now or never, really. This is the opportunity to do it. If I'm going to leave, I should probably leave now while I get a good chunk of my salary to pay me to figure out what I want to do. Gus thought the same, and we had a chat and said, well, should we give this a go? Should we actually try and do what we never managed to do at Centrica and build something around safety, around process safety and data, and see if we can make a go of it? And that's essentially what the birth of Empirisys was. It was, the two of us thinking, let's give it a go. Let's try and do this thing again. So what Empirisys does today is we are primarily a consultancy, and we help high hazard organizations. So in particular, that's oil and gas, that's chemicals, refining, and increasingly built environments, so construction. And we help them to essentially be safer, more productive, more reliable, but safety is the big thing, through the use of data. So we will look at big organizations' data, and we will try to understand, are there any inherent risks that haven't come to the surface, or that might have been missed, and there aren't obvious. So we definitely don't do things like look at sensor data for kind of anomaly detection, because big companies do that already. We will look at things that might pertain to culture or leadership, because underneath pretty much every big accident that's happened in recent history, underneath the kind of the obvious cause, like, oh, this pipe burst or this O-ring snapped, there is a cultural or a leadership issue. There is actually the root cause of it. So shall I give you an example? I'll talk about maybe the Challenger disaster. So, the space shuttle that exploded in the 80s, and then, the Columbia disaster happened later. But there's a really famous video of Richard Feynman, the American physicist who was on the commission to understand what happened in the Challenger disaster. It's a famous video of him with an O-ring, like a piece of rubber, little rubber O-ring. He dips it in ice, and then he kind of brings her out, and it snaps, and he shows that the shuttle shouldn't have flown because it was sub-zero temperature. The O-ring froze, and then it snapped. And that's what caused the gas to release, and eventually meant that the shuttle exploded. And it's really powerful, and it's kind of, it's quite emotional as well, because lots of people lost their lives. A school teacher lost her life. It was, a really sort of traumatic event for America. And the cause is this O-ring. This O-ring was frozen. But why was the O-ring frozen? Why was the shuttle allowed to fly in sub-zero temperature? Because actually all the engineers on the ground knew that this was a risk. So if you kind of look at any of the kind of output, and there've been lots of books written about this, and a few good films as well, you can see that all the engineers knew this was a risk, and they communicated upwards to their superiors there was a risk. However, there were government pressure, public pressure to launch. The contractor didn't want to communicate with NASA. There were sort of sensitivity issues, essentially massive leadership failings that meant that the risk was never fully articulated. And those are the kind of things we try to look at. We try to understand, are there hidden aspects, hidden features that relate to people, basically things around people or process or things other than the kind of the obvious that might mean that there's a big risk or an organization. So that was a fairly lengthy explanation, but I think hopefully it made sense with a bit of an example.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about how you would get the data points for that, though. So, because if you take your example, or like an engineer's dissatisfaction, how would you know that from a data point of view? Like, do they carry out do you carry out surveys?
Yeah.
Or do you carry out? Yeah. Okay.
So surveys is one way of doing it. I'll give you an example then of a company that we worked with a year and a half ago. I can't name the company, but they're a very, very big oil and gas company with a UK plant, and they knew what their issue was, but they didn't have the data to prove it. And they essentially had a series of trips at their plant which cost them a huge amount of money. Every time the plant went down, we're talking hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars lost each time. And they had, I think, 6 in 1 year and 10 the following year. So, we're talking really big numbers. And they sort of had an inkling about why there was an issue, but they didn't have the data to sort of support it. And they're a very data-driven organization. They don't do anything to make any decisions unless they have data to support it. So they wanted a sort of external third party to give them an unbiased view. And we did a few things there. We looked at, with a bit of prompting from them, because they were like, well, we think this is a sort of people-related thing. So can you look at our people data? And we found that none of this is rocket science, by the way. So it all sounds fairly obvious, but I guess the tricky bit is there's a lot of different things it could have been. So to sort of narrow it down to a few things is the tricky bit. We found that they had a lot of attrition, so a lot of people left over a fairly short amount of time, and those people were replaced with people who were very junior compared to the people that left. So there was a sort of 10 to 20 year age gap, and 15 experience gap. So you kind of, you're not replacing like for like. We found that there were massive gaps in training. So both for on the ground engineers and technicians and for leaders. So there was no leadership training. So across the board, there was this sort of gap in competency, I guess, leadership competency and engineering competency. And we found there were also sort of cultural issues that were pervasive in there was a little bit of an us and them essentially between engineering and management, which came out actually really starkly in the first call we ever had with them, which we didn't even need a survey for this. Essentially, we were kind of asking what they thought the problem was. And the engineer said, "Oh yeah, we'll tell you, but could the management all leave, please?" The management said, "Okay, yeah, fine, we'll leave." And we were all like, why are they?
That's a
leaving?
culture problem.
It's a big problem, which still sort of puzzles me a little bit to this day. But the outcome was that we kind of diagnosed these issues using their data, using their people data, their competency data, using surveys to sort of fill in some of the gaps. And then diagnosing that this is your issue. There's a leadership, competency, and training thing. These are the courses you need to do. Here's some leadership training as well that you can have. And then since then, I think they've had one trip in the last 2 years since then. So it was massively successful. Yeah, it was great. It's a real flagship project. It was a really brilliant project for us to be involved in quite early on as well, and gave us, I think, a lot of self-belief that the stuff that we're doing, it does have an impact. It does actually manage to cut through and make a real difference.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I like that. That really makes a lot of sense. I think what companies miss out on is that unbiased view. So if you had a data analyst who worked in HR, they would kind of answer the question before it's given out. So they would they would caveat the data to prove their version of events. Whereas if you have an unbiased view, like you guys have got, you can find those sorts of interdepartmental problems.
Exactly. I think that's a big benefit of getting a third party to help sometimes with that sort of thing. And this company, they're not known for using third parties that often. It's something that's sort of alien culturally to them. So it was kind of surprising that they were really open to it. And they took everything on board and were really good actually about implementing the changes and committing to sort of grow and change culturally, which is really, really difficult to do, especially in a big organization, as we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, that is one of the big challenges. You need sort of those. You need like a catalyst for that change. So I guess your input led to that catalyst for them to actually action change. Because most companies kind of plod along and they kind of just go, "Yeah, okay, it's the same. Yeah, I kind of know it's an issue, but I'm not going to do anything about it because no one's really telling me." Or the caveat problem that people face. No, that's awesome. So you've been there now. You've been going for 3 years now. What's the
3 years in October, yeah.
What's the next? What's next for it?
Well,
What's the next
we're a consultancy today, pretty much entirely consultancy. We have got one product, which is a survey tool. So we've kind of built our own dedicated survey tool that we think's really great and sort of builds in GPT-4. You know, the kind of the GPT-3 moving to GPT-4. We've got the playground access at the moment for it. And it's great because it then analyzes text results and pulls out, you know, really brilliantly the theme. So this kind of thing that I'm talking about now around, you know, cultural and leadership aspects, if they come out in a survey, you know, you survey 100 people, maybe you get 100 comments back. It's quite difficult to parse through that. And even with NLP techniques as of a year ago, you do topic analysis, you do sentiment analysis, you might be able to sort of pull out kind of high level themes. Now, with the advent of kind of these new AI techniques, you can pull out such amazing fine-grained detail from thousands of comments and say, you know, give me the themes that come out again and again. There are positive, or the ones that are negative, or the ones that touch on training, or the ones that touch on clarity, or wherever it might be. And you can be really advanced with it. So the thing we built, Sense, is the name of the survey tool, which is on our website. You can go and take a look.
Nice plug. Nice plug.
Thank you. I thought I'd get one. I'm really going for it. I hope you can tell. But yeah, we built Sense, and we were kind of using that now. We've actually just finished and just published the white paper. We think the biggest industry survey for UK offshore. So it was with a company called an organization called Step Change and Safety, who were set up after Piper Alpha, basically to make sure that Piper Alpha doesn't happen again. So, you know, they're a brilliant organization, non-profit, and we've worked with them to put a survey together. We had 73 companies, 450 respondents, with very senior leaders in each of these companies, and we put together used Sense to do the survey, to analyze the results, to pull the data together with the kind of AI functions, and then put a white paper together, a report on the industry, which is great. So all that is a long way of saying we're moving towards products. We have a product, which is a survey tool. We want to build more products, and we've got a few products in the pipeline that we're sort of in very early prototypes with.
Nice. So Sense, then, do you allow more like free text rather than, you know, 1 to 10? How happy are you with your service type survey? Is it just like full free text?
No, it's both. And we do. So part of what we do is we build question sets that we can really get the most out of. So what that means is you have your sort of Likert style questions, you know, your 1 to 7, strongly disagree to strongly agree. But those questions we structure in such a way that we can analyze them and then measure the kind of the numerical score that comes out in quite a few different ways, and then cut that against the kind of textual comments. So what that means is we have a few different kinds of questions that we'll ask. So we will ask either empirical or emotional questions. So an empirical question asking about like the evidence for something. So in your organization, are there up-to-date safety policies? Maybe might be an empirical question. And an emotional question might be, do you feel safe on your plant? You know, and it's your opinion. And then you can measure the difference between the empirical and the emotional responses you get. So empirically, everyone says things are great. Emotionally, there's an issue, you know, it's much lower. Why is that? And you can start to dig into that. And then we also cut our questions into different themes. And usually those themes tend to be based on like an existing framework. So like offshore Europe has got a set of kind of 8 themes, like around clarity and competency and sharing and so on. So, you know, we'll use those themes and we'll structure those questions so we can get a good picture of your organization is great here, or it's less good there, or there's more variability here. And those question sets are part of the offering, really, because there are so many survey tools out there. You know, and there's like free ones, there's paid ones, they all do slightly different things. And we're not we're not going to compete with Qualtrics. We're not going to compete with SurveyMonkey. It's not going to happen. But we think we can build a really great niche just for doing, really, really high-end process safety surveys. And that's what Sense is about.
Yeah, that's cool. I think I don't particularly like surveys. I've got to be honest, because they're kind of they are boring. It is that disagree, don't disagree, and not a lot of them do that NLP sort of ChatGPT. That's not there yet in most of them. And when you just fill it in, it kind of just picks up on the keywords, so it doesn't pick up on sentiment at all. It's just like happy, sad.
It's really basic. You think, what's the point of doing this? What am I getting from it? Am I really getting any insight from the data?
And the people doing it as well feel the same, right? Because they're kind of like,
definitely
agree, disagree. I'll click as quick as I can because no one's really going to listen to this. That's pretty cool. I look forward to hearing about the other products. So there'll be if you're doing that sort of thing in surveys, the other products. Don't have to do it now, Pete. It's all right. Unless you want to plug another one.
Well, maybe I can come back. Or maybe I'll ask our product owner to come and talk about them. We've got. I've just very, very quickly just mentioned that all the consultancy stuff I talked about earlier, this finding out from data what the issues are. We want to do that as a product. So we want to automate all of that. We want to connect to the data sources and pull out all of the potential issues that you could have and sort of quantify that level of risk. And we're doing that. We're not just you could sort of do anything, right? Because you can pull out all the data you want and it could just be a big mess. We're doing that based on the HSE, the Health and Safety Executive in the UK, have got a list of, I always forget the number exactly, 27, 28 performance influencing factors. And they're things like fatigue or unclear work instructions or, things of that nature that we are working our way towards right now, figuring out what data can support each of those things. And the product we're building is essentially plug it into your organization. It'll go and search for all those data sources through integrations, and then run a bunch of models to say what level of risk have you got for each of those. So your workforce is not fatigued. They're all on shift at the right time. No one's working crazy amounts of overtime. So it's all good. However, we've looked through your technical manuals and they're in gibberish and the work instruction is really unclear. You need to do something about this. Or, for instance. So that's the other product called Detect. Very early days. We are starting to talk about it now.
Oh, that sounds awesome. I think the biggest challenge you'll have there is integration.
Definitely.
Because all companies have random data everywhere. That's going to be the biggest challenge.
It will be.
That sounds pretty cool, though.
Yeah, it's really cool. It will be. The integration thing that's the thing that keeps me up at night on that project, and it'll have to be. I think we'll kind of facing up to the fact there'll be a big installation up front. It's not SaaS. It's not plug and play. It's going to have to be, we'll plug all the bits in for you. That's 3 months. And then, you get this thing and it should keep running, hopefully, something like that. Or use partners. But anyway, we'll get Andrea to come on in 6 months and tell you about what we've actually done, hopefully.
Yeah, cool. I don't mind that at all. Because that's one of the big challenges for most IT projects. If you're internal and you're thinking a new tool's coming in, you're thinking integration. Every IT director, every data manager is thinking, that's a 6-month project. Straight off the bat.
Definitely.
But it sounds like it'd be worth it, though, if you can do all those things. That's kind of pretty amazing stuff. So it's definitely worth it. So Empirisys been going for come up to 3 years now, and you've just won an award as well around being one of the best places to work in the UK. So why is sort of company culture important to you?
So the award was the Sunday Times 100 best workplaces, and we were in the small business category, and we were very surprised to come in the top 100. We did it because we wanted to genuinely know where our people were thinking and feeling, and was there a great place to work? So I think it is, but I don't know. I need once an unbiased view. So we were sort of blown away to get it. And yeah, okay, why is company culture important? I guess there's two answers to that. There's a business answer and there's a human answer. The business answer, I think, is because a good culture makes a good business. Ultimately, it's as simple as that. If people like what they're doing, they believe in the mission, they get on with their colleagues, and it's a harmonious environment, everyone's pulling in the same direction, you will have better outcomes. I don't buy the sort of toxic workplace where you reward the winners and then you cut the losers every year, or this sort of, I can't remember which the big consultancies do it, they cut the bottom 10% every year, Bain or BCG or one of those. No, I don't buy that that's a good thing to do on a human level or a business level. I think maybe it works in very particular environments at very particular times, but for a startup, a growing startup that wants to build a sort of a lasting organization, and even, if we want to eventually exit, even for an eventual exit, I think you build better if you have a good culture, if people are bought into what you're doing, they care. That's the business reason. The human reason is more important. That's the actual reason, which is we spend an awful lot of our time in work. We spend a third of our day, half our waking hours in a week in work or thinking about work. Why would I want to do that in an environment that I don't like and I don't enjoy and people around me don't enjoy? That baffles me that anybody would choose to go into work and be an arsehole for the day. It staggers me. And we've all worked with them, right? We've all worked with tons of them, and they're proud of it sometimes. It's absolutely mind-blowing. And if I ever feel like I've inadvertently created an environment where people don't enjoy coming to work, or they dislike what they're doing, or there's something wrong there, that would be genuinely heartbreaking. I'd be gutted. It would knock me back way more than like losing a client or some kind of financial thing. And I think as I've got older, that's become more and more true. And I've been personally I've had a very difficult few years, as you know, Stu. I've gone through all sorts of kind of personal issues with people close to me passing away. The colleagues I had in Centrica at the time were amazing. The sort of the level of support from the organization, the culture of the organization was such that it was never a big deal, for me not to be in work. I was allowed to sort of take the time. And then even during COVID, I was sort of single parent with 3 children. Take as long as you need. That was the thing. And we've got your back. We'll support you. That meant such a lot. I mean, hopefully you remember before that, my sort of take on management was generally, I want us to be a really nice place to work. I want us to be a good culture. I want us to be pulling in the same direction. But after those experiences, I've sort of doubled down on that. That for me is the single most important thing. Like the people that I'm lucky enough to come work for me are that they are the single most important thing in the organization. And if I've done something to affect that, that's horrific to me. I can't bear the thought that I'd have like or anyone close to me would have a kind of negative impact on the people around them.
Yeah, I think what you've got is people want to work for you. I know I did when we met at Centrica. It's that sort of your attitude towards management is endearing because you just allow people to do what they need to do. And that sort of, it's interesting because at the startup, you usually get the opposite, right? Because you are fighting, it's fight or flight, right? So you are trying to survive. And to do that as a startup is more, I would probably say more about who you are than anything else I've ever heard about or read about. And I know that from experience because you've just got that. People just want to work for you because of the attitude you've got.
That's really nice to hear. It might also be because I'm really lazy and I just don't like having to give a load of instructions.
I could get away with murder, right? I could literally just disappear for a week and you wouldn't know. I'd be like, yeah, fine, Pete, I'm on a beach. But
yeah, yeah. But you know, like I'd also sort of accept that as well. That wouldn't be the worst thing, as long as you know, as long as the focus on getting the stuff done that we needed to do together was done, I wouldn't care. It would be fine. I'm
yeah,
you know, someone comes in at like 10:30 every day and finishes at 4:30. Okay, you think, well, are they getting the stuff done that I'd want them to get done? Are they delivering? If they were working from home and I didn't get to see what they were doing every day, would I be happy with their output? And it's really sort of difficult to get away from that kind of, I don't know, that inner. I'm going to use the word chimp now. So like the inner chimp, because I'm reading a book called The Chimp Paradox at the moment, which is great, and I heavily recommend it. But it means the sort of the gut reaction. You know, I don't feel comfortable with this. I want to stamp my authority down and show that I'm the boss, and you need to do what I say when I say it, and you know you need to be on working time and that I don't. I have a visceral reaction against that kind of approach, because I think it's counterproductive. It doesn't help anybody. And if you're, I think generally, most people that come to work want to do a good job. And I think most people want to do something that they care about. And most people don't want to be seen as being lazy or incapable or incompetent. You know, most people want to do the
yeah,
right thing. And I think just give people all the opportunities to do the right thing as often as you can. And if they keep doing the wrong thing despite instruction and despite support and despite, you know, all your kind of best efforts, fine, then you're going to make a difficult decision. But I think it very rarely comes to that. I think I've only ever really dealt with one person in my career who I found I just couldn't get through to. And I think you know who that person is. We're not gonna speak that name on the now or ever. But you know, other than that, and all the people I've ever hired or ever managed or ever dealt with, you know, everybody's been really committed to doing stuff. And if you just give people a bit of leeway, they do really great stuff. So
I'm just
yeah,
recollecting that person now. Like,
we
I
can
haven't
talk
thought about
about
that
that
person
after.
I've thought about that person in a long time.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
he's
triggering,
he's he's
triggering. Yeah,
yeah. But no, you are right. I think if you give people the space to do good things, they generally will.
yeah,
There is always that potential that someone could do nothing and take advantage of that sort of space. But
yeah, yeah.
you can deal with that. What you can't deal with is if you've got 100 people and you're making them not enjoy being in the office.
Exactly,
Like,
exactly. Yeah,
nah, man.
yeah,
I do remember. To be honest, we do work in kind of a fun environment as well, like a fun sort of space. I think if you're a building site, I don't think this sort of attitude could apply because you haven't really got the opportunity to. No one could turn up at 10 o'clock because the mixer's just turned up of the van.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
You're
yeah.
too late. I think in technology, it's a really fun environment. You can make it that fun
Well,
environment.
this is the thing, right? Why do we work 9 to 5, Monday to
Mm,
Friday? Why do we all work from an office or from a particular location? Lots of our team will work from they're from kind of lots of different places in the world. So they'll work from the Netherlands for a bit, or Lithuania for a bit, or Spain for a bit. That's fine. Or they don't want to work this morning. They'll catch up and get this report done on Saturday. Okay, that's fine. No big deal. We all muck in when we need to as well. So we've done a few late nights together. We've done a few
mm.
weekends together. We've had a full Friday afternoon off and all gone to the pub. We don't need to. It's not like we're on a building site where we have to get this done by this point and so on. And when we do, because sometimes you have clients and you have to be there for clients, we do. That's
Yeah,
okay. Just sort of treat everyone like adult. I think this is it. Treat people like adults. That's
yeah,
where
yeah.
I really want to get to. And sometimes maybe I think my danger is I go too far, possibly treating like adults and just not give any instruction, which you probably remember, some of that as well. So I don't know.
Just
Stu,
fix
why are you
it.
asking
I just
me?
read,
Just
just
you
just
can,
just fix
yeah,
it.
I trust you. You can fix it. You get it done.
I remember that a lot. Just fix it. But okay. Yeah, I think That's interesting, because I think everybody who listens to this that works for you, tomorrow they're going to call you from a beach. And you're like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just done for a week. Don't worry, Pete. I'll get it done. And then we'll have another
Fine.
podcast where you're like, yeah, I had to let everybody go.
Yeah. Yeah. Come and speak to evil Pete in 6 months. Yeah. When I've had a full 180.
I think that'd be a great podcast. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, it would, wouldn't it?
I say that. That's harsh. So what about remote working then? Because you just mentioned you got a couple of people working about. A lot of the banks now, a lot of like large corporations are going, you know, you had Reese Mogg walking around telling everyone he's got to get back to work. You know, nice to see you in the office, leaving a card. I don't want to talk about him, by the way, because that's a whole podcast on its own.
I will. I'll limit my political feelings.
But what about remote working against being in the office? And I think what I'll give you my standpoint on some of it is around the lack of team culture and how hard it is to build that sort of culture. Now, you just won the award for company culture. I find it difficult sometimes when your team is remote.
Yeah.
And you need to get that. Sometimes you just need to be in a room together, talking things out, and not necessarily talking about anything important, just having that human connection.
Yeah.
How do you manage that?
Well, we have a 100% remote first policy. No one is compelled to be in the office at all, apart from 2 days a year where we have a summer get together and we have a Christmas get together, and we all meet up in Cardiff, have an off-site or an on-site in our office for a day, and have drinks and dinner and stuff. They're the only 2 days we actually say, you know, you need to be there because it's important for us just to meet face to face and get some kind of human connection. So everybody, no matter where you're based, you are remote first. We have an office. So we've got a really lovely office space in the Spark building, the Cardiff University building. So if you know Cardiff, in the University Quarter on Maindy Road, there's a social science research park where a bunch of startups are based. We're one of them. But we don't compel anybody to come in, ever. So it's the middle of summer now. We had 4 people in today. We had 6 people in yesterday. Usually out of summer, we always kind of have at least 4 or 5. A few times we've gone above 8. So our office bits 8. We've gone above 8. And a few times you kind of hit 10 to 12 because people travel as well. Because people like it. They like coming in. When they're not made to come in, they enjoy the feeling of being in. And quite a few of us, I'm one of them, I go in every day because I like being in that environment. But equally, there are some people that never come in, and they also feel part of the team because we make an effort to sort of, or I certainly make an effort to chat to people on Teams and try to not just chat about work. But I feel like I'm going to run the risk of sounding like David Brent now, you know, and sort of, yeah, I'm more of a friend than a boss, you know, more of a joker, more of a comedian than a boss. And it's not that. And I don't do this. There was a fad for a while about, at the beginning of a meeting, you'd go around in a circle and everyone would say about what they were going to do on the weekend or how they were feeling. And it was like, do you remember this? I don't think it's still a thing in corporates. Maybe it is, but you know, it was this idea that because we're going to get to know each other as people, we're going to work better together. But it was so forced that I think it had the opposite effect. You know, it made me dislike people more because I'm like, I don't want to hear in this artificial way about you painted your bloody fence on the weekend, or you know, you took your kids to the zoo. You know, like why are we sharing this now? We should be talking about this particular thing. It was really forced and it felt false, and I think it didn't ever land because of that. So I definitely try not to do that. However, I will sort of, you know, maybe try to talk about semi-related topics on Teams that people might be interested in. Or, you know, there's a fancy football that someone started, or we play squash together on a Wednesday, or we we'll go to lunch or go to the pub, or have like kind of these random calls that we'll talk a little bit about the thing we're doing, but then we're more interested in, oh, look, this new version of GPT, can we use it? Or like we were doing this really random thing the other day, which this is I think this is related. You might not think it's related, but we were looking at sort of AI simulators. There's this AI simulator that tells you whether you're going to get into the famous German nightclub Berghain. So there's this there's this German nightclub that nobody gets into, like they're famous for bounce refusing everybody. And you can do the simulator where it kind of takes a look at your face, it gauges your emotional state, so your sadness, your I can't remember what the other ones are. I just noticed sadness online. That was the one that jumped out. And then it asks you 3 questions, and you've got to answer these questions, and then it tells you whether you get in or not, and like the bouncer will turn you away. And that's kind of related to what we're doing, right? Because we're building chatbots right now. We're using GPT. We're not doing facial recognition, but obviously that's part of it. But using something like that as a sort of more fun way to talk to people you might not normally talk to. I think those little cultural things sounds really trivial as I'm saying it, but I think they're so important. These little cultural things that you can find common ground with people, and it's semi-related, but it's also fun, and you can talk about it. And it becomes part of your shared identity. Remember when we tried to get him to Berghain on the simulator, and you got in, but you didn't, and it just becomes part of your identity. Those things,
Yeah, that's really cool, man.
You should have a look, Stu. I don't think you'd get in, mate.
I don't think I would. No. I don't know. Buse is I do have blue eyes, and Buse is a German surname. So I might be right in there. I might get right in.
Can we put a link in the notes for any listeners afterwards?
I'll put a link in for it. You'll have to send it to me. That's no, that's cool, man. I think it's a hard balance, I find, though, with remote. The culture bit is the bit that I always sort of like think about, because we had probably some of the best times in Centrica when we were in the hotel down in Staines, or just the next day when we're all hungover going to important meetings. Like those sorts of like
you're bonding, aren't they?
Yeah. You don't get those when you work remote. So trying to integrate it in a remote way is quite an interesting and challenging feat. Because
it is, yeah.
I don't have the same problem as you've got, because you've got international. We're South Wales based, but it is. We do have sort of social nights. The only time we generally get together is a social night, or if we've got a bigger project coming up, we'll have a day together. So and that works for us.
Are you all remote otherwise then, or work?
Yeah, we're generally remote. Yeah, we try to go. Yeah, generally.
Wow. Right.
I now go to the office probably once or twice a week, just because it's the 6 weeks holidays, and I need to get away from my kids.
Yeah.
But yeah, generally I try to go to the office as much as I can. But yeah, some of my team don't, and that's okay. I don't really, it doesn't bother me. I'd rather people turn up to social events.
Yeah.
And like the get-togethers, or if we're doing sort of like an innovation afternoon, let's all get in a room together and have a bit of fun and create something a bit wacky.
Yeah, exactly. Those kinds of things I think are great, because they are like bonding experiences. I think you need to have some way of bonding as a team, and usually you do that, as you just said, like through a night out, or just through having lunch together. All the kind of team lunches and stuff. So how would you do that if you're fully remote? And I think, that was like a very trivial example, this kind of AI simulator, but you do that with people, you do similar stuff to that, these kind of silly things that you can laugh for each other a little bit, and you kind of just enjoy just for what it is, which is a bit of fun, and you do that together, you laugh with somebody. I think those sorts of things start to create a bit of a bond. They're not quite as strong, but I think they get there. And I think they're so much better than this circle, creeping death around in a circle of what you did on the weekend, which Jesus,
they were pretty bad. I don't think I've ever experienced it other than in Centrica. Those, I think what Centrica did well is sometimes we did like energizers at the beginning of a meeting. They were always quite interesting, but the ones where you're like, tell me about the weekend. It's like, I don't even know who you are. So I really don't even want to know. I need to tell you where I'm going to be, because if you turn up, you just ruined my weekend.
Exactly.
So yeah, they are sort of forced. I think, it's a tough one. But I don't really like the mandated, you have to be in the office. And, Pobble at the moment are really good with the way that they manage it. They let it is at the manager's discretion. So if a
Yeah,
director's discretion, it depends on, we've got a lot of sort of customer facing roles. So they can't really be remote only. But in a way you are, because you're traveling between customers anyway.
traveling
You're
anyway.
not
Yeah,
necessarily,
yeah.
but it's sort of, yeah, they've got a really good mix of it at the moment. We kind of just
I think there's
play it
really
by the
good
way there.
reasons to to have people in an office together, and they are around team cohesion and creating a bond, and workshopping and brainstorming. Those things I think are still probably better done physically. But I think that lots of the reasons that organizations are making people go back to the office are not for those reasons. They're based out of fear. They're based out of
Yeah,
just kind of old control, command and control, or they're based on the fact that we have spent a lot of money on this asset, on this office space. We're going to sweat it. We're going to get the most out of it, please. I want to see it full, or we want to show to the directors that it's full. And those aren't great reasons. They're doomed to fail as well, I think.
yeah. Well, funny enough, Pobble, we did a survey. We sent a survey out saying, "Was everyone thinking about remote working?" And everyone was like, "Well, I kind of just like it as it is. I
Yeah,
like the discretion of my manager, and sometimes we get together, sometimes we don't. We don't want to be forced." And the
yeah,
culture was that the executive team went, "Okay, we'll just
yeah.
play it
That's
as you
great.
want."
That's
Like,
great. Very
if you
mature.
think about, like, there's a few banks that are doing it now, be in the office 4 to 5 days a week. I just don't see the logic in it. You're just gonna Your competitors will just do the opposite.
Yeah,
So
hopefully.
what's the point? Yeah, well,
Hopefully,
yeah.
yeah. And you lose really great talent,
Mm, you
because
definitely
the
will.
young talent coming through, particularly, they know the world is different, and they know they can work for almost anybody in the world now,
Yeah,
and they're not having to be there. And that, we're in South Wales, it's a great place to live. The cost of living is comparatively really great. There's a ton of stuff to do around here. It's a really livable area. Should be a competitive advantage for us. We should
yeah.
be, I think, as a region, kind of attracting people from elsewhere. Say, look, you can live here, you can work for anybody remotely. But I wonder as well if there's a bit of policy coming in, if there's a bit of kind of government pushing for people to come back in again, because the office sector, the rental sector is so dependent on it, and it's such a big sector. What are the repercussions of there being a kind of massive bust in that sector? I don't know. I think there's lots of different factors.
The high
Um,
street suffers from it for sure because no one bothers going for
yeah,
lunch anymore because it's dead. Newport. If you look at Newport now, it's not that busy because most people work remotely.
Cardiff
And
is. The rush hour in Cardiff today was crazy, and it's summer
really,
holidays. Yeah, I was driving at between 4:30 and 5:30 through Cardiff town centre, and it was packed still. And I was kind of saying to it, I thought everybody was remote working, and it's summer holidays. Where's everybody going? So
well, everyone's back in the office because the kids are in the house, so
yeah,
everyone's
it probably
sorting
is
out.
actually like a reverse migration back out again.
Yeah. Tell you
Yeah, you're
what, keep
probably
the
right.
kids off school, everyone will go back to the office. That's
Yeah, yeah,
100%
yeah.
true.
I think
I
you're right.
think no, it's an interesting thing though. It is hard to weigh up, but I think good leaders need to listen to what the staff want. So if staff want to be in, if your team told you, "Oh, we want to be in the office every day," and you're like, "No, we're remote first," they'd
Yeah.
probably be like, "No, no, hold on, that's not going to work, right?" You just got to listen to what people want, and then you'll encourage people to work for you. So I think
Yeah,
the
definitely.
market, you could work for any. The problem now, as employers, is you can work for anybody from your desk at your home.
Yeah,
There is no sort of advantage that you can give. You can get more money, you can move quicker. The only
yeah,
advantage is company culture.
yeah.
That's
That
the
is
one
that is
advantage we've got.
exactly, that is literally it. That's the only thing you've got to start. And we're a very poor, self-funded, almost entirely self-funded startup. We can't afford to compete with a bank or a
Yeah,
well-funded startup on salary. We know we're barely paying the market rates. That's all we can do at the moment. We will do better the bigger we get, and we've already kind of started increasing, but we know we're not going to be able to compete on that. So the only thing we can compete on is the company culture, and there is all the sort of, this is part of it. You work where and when you want to work, and how you want to work. That's fine. We'll make that part of the ethos of the company. So I think if you're a big bank, you can afford to pay. So like, what is that worth to you as an employee? Is that worth 20 grand a year? Is that worth 50 grand a year? If I'm a big bank, I'm going to chuck the money at it because that's easier for me to do. But I think long term, I don't think you win on that long term. I think ultimately that there has been a cultural shift in the last couple
I
of
think it's a
years.
generational thing as well, though. I
Definitely.
think young people want to be free of the 9 to 5. They do not
Yeah.
want to be shackled to a desk every day. If you can work from your holiday home or on holiday,
Yeah.
why wouldn't you? And if a company
Exactly.
stops you, well, I'll just go to
Exactly.
the one that will. So
Yeah. Completely understandable.
it's a crazy world, leadership and culture. But I guess the other question to ask you, because obviously you are a data leader, where does data leadership fit in with all this, and what makes a good sort of data leader?
Like, so data leadership specifically, as opposed to sort of general leadership.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's so part of me thinks that actually there is no distinction. Part of me thinks that if you're a good leader, that should translate into good data leader, good software leader, good leader in a kitchen, good leader on a building site. It's sort of the same thing. And I think there definitely are innate qualities that are shared, almost irrespective of the industry that you're in or the sector that you're in. And
yeah,
those sorts of qualities are around trusting your people and having, being there as a supporter of them, and this kind of idea of a servant leader that I think is great. But then I guess specifically around data leadership, if I think about the state of the data industry, data sector today, I think probably there are a couple of particular aspects that are probably quite important. I think one of them is you need to be very comfortable with change, because the amount of constant change in the data world is incredible. It's ridiculous. So, we're talking about GPT-4 today. GPT 3.5 came out very recently. If we were doing this podcast a year ago, we probably wouldn't be talking about GPT at all, right? We'd be
yeah.
talking about something different.
Wouldn't
And
know
if we
about
took
it.
this podcast 5 years ago, we might be talking about basic NLP. If we took talking 10 years ago, we wouldn't be talking about any of this stuff. We'd be talking about data warehouses probably, or maybe the advent of some of this stuff.
Yeah,
And 25 years ago, we wouldn't be talking about this because it was such a new burgeoning field. There wouldn't be a data strategist. People would say, "What the hell is a data strategy?" Or it'd be a very,
yeah.
very new. So our field is quite new. SQL is, how old? SQL 50, 60? SQL 60 years old. So our field is very, very young, very fast moving. Is the fastest moving field. Technology generally, I think, is very fast moving, but within the technology sphere, data is the fastest moving. So I think being super comfortable with change and knowing that you are not going to know everything. So just having this innate feeling that you're comfortable knowing everything, because you're never going to know everything. And I think allied to that then leads to, I really need to trust my people, because I'm not going to know everything, but maybe our team can know enough that we can get by. So I think that's a super big one for me. The other aspect I think for data is, I think this is probably true of lots of leadership areas, but as well as being comfortable with change, you need to be really on the ball with risk, because the level of risk that we are now dealing with in data, and that's through cybersec or GDPR, or inadvertently building terrible models that are biased, God forbid they're racist or homophobic or something. These things have all happened in very recent times. You need to have sort of one eye on the risk to you and the risk to your people and your organization at all times. And I think increasingly data and cybersec, or maybe it's broader than cybersec, but data risk and data, I think we maybe talk about data ethics, data ethics, policy, governance, all that is going to become a much bigger part of it. And if you're a data leader, that means you need to understand governance, you need to understand risk in a big way. So I think those are probably the two aspects that are, amongst all the general stuff that are shared amongst leaders, despite which sector. Those are the two, if you're in data, that you need to make a bit of a concerted effort to get good at, being really comfortable with change and really understanding the risk that you're dealing with and the governance needed to manage it.
Interesting. I think I found over the course of my career, I found people that are really technically gifted who can do amazing things. And, like you said earlier, but you walk into a room, you ain't the smartest guy, right?
No,
So I've worked with like
absolutely.
a couple of PhDs. Well, you've got a PhD now, but I can't, I'm not going to give you a compliment.
No,
but
I didn't. I've not got a PhD. I've got half a PhD. I got a P,
okay.
P and a bit of an H, I guess.
We got a PL then. I guess. Yeah, but you work with like some really intelligent, smart people that are just going to be technically more gifted than you are. I think what people lack, though, or what I've found people are lacking is what to do with the data. It's great that you've got technical leaders who will build something, right? They can build you anything, but what to build is a whole area in certain sectors, especially public sector, is just non-existent. So like people just don't know what to do with it. And a few of the companies I've worked for previously didn't know they had this asset of data. They had a product that generated information and they didn't know what to do with it. So I think like there's a whole area of technical skill sets and technical leadership's really strong, but the what and the why that's
interesting. Yeah, I hadn't considered that at all. So do you think that's like the quality might be something like creativity, or is it more about knowledge? You've got this built up knowledge, maybe a mixture of both.
It's a mixture of that and a bit of like entrepreneurship as well. It's like think a little bit, just think differently. Don't think as like linearly. Think of stuff that's not been done. Why not? Why haven't you done that? Why why not? That's the way I can think about it.
Curiosity might be the aspect there, because I think that comes up a lot with when I hear kind of data people speak. It's like, I'm curious. I want to go and find out why is that in the data? What is that telling me? And then you dig deeper and deeper and deeper. And I think that then leads naturally to what you were sort of pertaining to. We could then do that. If we've got this, then why don't we look at this? Why doesn't this, X naturally leads to Y? So I think that's probably that's a really good one, actually, Stu. I like that one.
I've come across it a lot where people are built a really good product, but just haven't got the foggiest of what to do with the data that sits underneath. Because it's such a massive asset now. And I guess, if you go back culturally 10, 20 years ago, no one really saw data as an asset. They just saw it as something that just happened, and that's how the system works. And it was all about UX. That's what it was all about, is how sexy a product looked or how quick it was to click through. And no one realized the data that generated was probably worth more value than the product.
The data is the product quite often these days, isn't it? The data is the thing that you're actually selling. Yeah, I think that's really interesting, and it is still a thing that needs to be considered, because while you kind of talk to some organizations and they're really great, they know exactly what they've got with the data and they know what they want to do with it, and they're already talking about building predictive models and using sort of bot services and so on. There are others that Power BI is terrifying to them. So just building a dashboard is kind of very advanced. And we're not, particularly with small businesses. I think there's a big need for small businesses to get sort of digitally and data enabled a lot more. There's a massive opportunity, I think, there for some organization to really go out and make a big difference to an awful lot. Most businesses are small businesses. There's an awful lot out there. And I think having that kind of curiosity, that creativity, that ability to deliver stuff would be massive. So I like that. Maybe it's good to have three of something, isn't it? Maybe that's the third quality then.
Yeah. I like that. If you think about the old project management, time, cost,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
what was the
Quality.
other one? Quality. No, quality's the middle. It's time, cost, damn. I forgot. It's the iron triangle, they called it. I can't remember what it. That's going to really drive me insane now. No.
We
Scope.
can
That's it. It's scope.
put
Time,
it in
quality, and
there.
scope. There you
Right,
go.
right.
We'll move on now. We'll just forget about what I said. So you're using ChatGPT, and obviously you mentioned about data ethics earlier. I think it's probably a good way to sort of end the podcast is about what do you think about data ethics? I think the Twitter example that I've spoken about before, where Microsoft put this bot out there and was like, oh, talk to it, and then it became
Yeah.
the most racist
Yeah.
chat
Yeah.
bot in the world.
Yeah.
How important is data ethics, and how do we sort of manage that as leaders in data or technology, or
Yeah.
maybe not in that space, but how do we
Yeah.
manage it?
Tay was the name of the chatbot, I think, wasn't it? And
Yeah,
I wrote a blog about it because it was so interesting. It was such like an interesting. I mean, and it was in retrospect, in hindsight, it was obvious that was going to happen,
yeah,
but not at the time. No one beforehand, was kind of saying it was going to happen. And it was really sort of sadly fascinating because it sort of started repeating itself and spiraling. It kind of went mad, and they were like it was similar to the end of 2001 where Hal starts singing Daisy Bell slower and slower. It was like kind of losing its mind in real time. Really, I kind of I strongly advise anybody that's not familiar with it to go and take a look at Tay, the Microsoft chatbot, because it's like a fascinating study in how to do all the wrong things with a
yeah.
chatbot, how to train it the wrong way. But yeah, I think that's a bit of an aside actually, because I think there's been a lot of noise and fuss made about ChatGPT and how it's going to lead to the end of jobs and it's going to take over the world and launch the nukes and all this sort of scare story bullshit for the most part. I'd say there's definitely some issues with it, but ultimately I feel like it's probably a force for good. Is going to allow us to very quickly pull out information and assimilate data in ways that we couldn't before. And that's going to be a helpful thing for the world as a whole. I think where I have an issue with data ethics and governance and policies are where it already happens today and we don't even know about it. So where, insurance companies are using it in ways that are regulated by the government, but fairly invisible and opaque to consumers, or where policy decisions are made by you as an individual, you as a citizen, that you're not aware of, or the kind of Cambridge Analytica, Facebook scandal, where data is being used to serve you ads that would influence you politically. There's a ton of fairly low level, fairly mundane, but very morally and ethically dubious uses of data today that get literally no airtime because they're quite boring. I'm bored telling you about them, talking about them. But they have way more an effect on our lives than any of the other stuff that is in the news. This whole fuss about ChatGPT and how AI should be regulated, I don't buy it for a second.
No,
I think it's a complete red herring. It sells newspapers or gets clicks, and there've been lots of articles written about how it's in Microsoft's and Facebook's and whoever's best interest to regulate it, because then they'll become the people that own it. They've got the keys.
yeah.
So of course they want to regulate it, and okay, fair enough. So far so obvious. But I think that's pretty irrelevant. I think I'd much rather understand how our government and how big organizations are using our data and what are they doing with it and what decisions are being made, but particularly social media companies. Why is the algorithm serving me these videos on YouTube Shorts or on Facebook or on Instagram? Because those are the things I think are far more influential. Why am I getting kind of far right, podcasters and YouTubers in my stream? Like, why is that happening? Are my kids getting that? Are my kids getting Andrew Tate videos or Jordan Peterson videos? that I think is a far more pervasive, far more thorny issue with ethics, and I don't have a solution or an answer for it, and I'm afraid none of us do really. We've kind of
We
culturally and
accept it though.
we accept it because we get the lovely little dopamine hit of a video
Yeah.
that we can scroll through and click through, and it's great, right? It's really fun for us to have that. I mean, I think I've talked about two issues here. One is the kind of social media giants and the algorithm, and one is the big organizations that are making decisions about us without us really knowing how and why they're making them, which has always been the case to some degree. So
Yeah.
actuaries and insurance, that's a long and old industry, but you kind of times that by 1,000,000 because that's the level of profiling that we can now do.
They've
Where
got more
does
data
that?
points on it.
Yeah, exactly. Where does that go? Is it legal? What point should we have kind of legal stop gaps to prevent us being profiled like that? Thank God we don't have sort of health insurance issues like they do in America. But that would be something I'd be really worried about if I was American. My DNA at some point going to be profiled, and I'll be declined insurance.
GDPR kind of protects us a little bit, I think, because I'm working in America. I know that they have no laws and no ethics when it comes to data. Working at one of the companies that I did, we were able to profile people to how much you would spend on a certain aspect or something,
Yeah,
and we would classify you as a and I think Experian do this as well, where they classify you as a big spender, weekend
yeah.
stay at home type guy. All this data exists, and I think we kind of accept it because we get something from it. Like if you think about Facebook, people just accept the terms and conditions because they are enjoying the service that Facebook provides. Well, they don't. But if you just went up to them and said, right, I want to know where you are at all times. I want to know who you're talking to, when you're talking to them, where you're talking to them. I want to know what you're talking about. People would
Yeah,
freak
yeah,
out
yeah,
and they would
yeah.
deny it. But because it's Facebook and they've got a level of trust with Microsoft and these companies, they kind of just go, meh, I got Facebook. I can scroll. I can see my friends.
Yeah.
And then you're relying on people you're relying on them to make a sensible decision
Yep,
that's
and
going to
you
benefit you,
can't.
not them.
You can't because it has to be done at a societal level. An individual just means that you personally miss out on something that everybody else is then getting. So
Yeah.
if it doesn't come at a higher level, a government policy level, then it's really difficult to make those sorts of things happen. And I think, yeah, I don't have an easy fix. I can't say, oh, if only we just did this, because there's no easy way to manage this. This is sort of the trade that we've made for the convenience.
Yeah. You sold your soul
So
for it, but you don't know it.
yeah, and that's the thing that I worry about with data and with ethics more than anything. That it's already a little bit too late for that, and our society has changed, and we've got to hope that the social media giants are benevolent and they choose just to spend their power serving us ads, and they don't turn it into something else like political campaigning. And I think if it was overtly political, I think government would step in, man. I think they'd have
Yeah.
to. Right. I
Well, it
mean, I get
depends. That depends on who the government
well,
is, right? And if they're already paying for the service of Facebook or Google.
we're in the UK. We could do another podcast about where I just murmur politics for an hour and a half. I hope there were some safeguards in place to prevent kind of overtly political, like campaigning or advertising or what have you. And I don't see actual political ads, but I see lots of content that I consider to be fairly right wing, alt right ish,
Yeah.
that does not align with my political beliefs at all. And I barely use this stuff, and then I go into it and I kind of see these videos come like, well, how's the algorithm profiled me? Fairly left of center, kind of liberal kind of guy with all this stuff. So if I'm getting that, what is everyone else getting? How is the decision being made here?
Yeah. So you don't think about Skynet Terminators. You don't think about any of that. You think more of the problems we face today.
Yeah, because to get to Skynet and Terminator, then you have to figure out how to integrate multiple different systems together in a government, which, as we know, is
Never
impossible.
gonna
You
happen.
cannot. Good luck. If the AI manages to do that, good luck to them. I shake the virtual hand. There's no way. Jesus, try and connect SAP to something else with an AI. Maybe in 5 or 10 years we'll have those tools, and then I'll start worrying. But no, I think we're miles away from that. We don't have a general intelligence at all. We
Mm.
definitely don't have an AGI. We've got very good kind of text chat models that can predict words and put sentences together. There's no thought. There's no consciousness at play. There's no human, human kind of sense of self underneath it. There's no intent. And we still don't know how to do that. We just
Yeah.
don't. It's not something that I'd expect to just emerge. I think we'll get way more sophisticated at building language models. I think that's great. I think we'll be able to write novels. I think we'll probably be able to make films, make music, make art that will rival and better humans in pretty much all aspects. But will we be able to create something that has genuine intent and a genuine sort of consciousness? I still don't know whether we can do that or not. I don't know what that actually is. And I don't think we know. It's not just going to emerge out of a deep neural network, is my feeling.
Yeah.
There'll be
I
something
think
different.
I think AI is going to remove a lot of mundane tasks that we do,
Yeah. So do I.
like administration tasks. That's
I
probably
hope
where its
so.
limit is, because if it does that, great. We can focus on doing better things
That's
with our
exactly
time.
my view. Exactly my
Yeah.
view. Yeah. Yeah.
I can't imagine Skynet or anything like that. You could see people using it, like in Die Hard 4, maybe, if they could connect all of the services together, maybe. But I don't
You
think
you
an
can.
AI would do
Yeah.
it.
Well, yeah. I mean, you could create a virus, a really nasty virus that was fairly intelligent that could go and do a load of damage. But there's a human doing that. That's like the same
Yeah,
as a human, making a gun and then pulling the trigger, I think.
yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, maybe we won't come back in 6 months and talk about a project. Maybe we talk about the downfall of civilization, the fall of man, because an AI is, and that would be a very different kind of podcast.
That would be.
That feels like a really nice, positive thing to end on as well.
It does. It has been a pleasure, mate, having you on, because I think, like you just said, we could probably talk for hours and hours, and I think we've covered quite a lot of bases there. And I think you are awesome with what you're doing with it.